Hi, it's Andy, and today I'm bringing you my April wrap-up. Yep, it is now the end of April and we are really getting into, the first quarter of the year is gone. We are getting into the second quarter of the year and we are kicking with the gas. I'm seeing everybody's Q1 stats coming out and we are all doing great. I'm so pleased with my Q1 stats. And I hit the ground running going into April. I am not going to lie. My April stats so far, this is the end of April. My April stats are beyond belief that I'm so happy with them. In April, I read 17 books. Actual books. I read 17 books. And I'm not saying actual books to be it doesn't count when you read name something that you wouldn't count as, some people don't count as actual books. I just mean my brain is how did you do that? Because I don't know how I did that. I'm just stunned at the fact that I was able to sit down and read 17 actual books when half the time I've just felt like crap. Probably that's why, because all I've been doing is sitting reading because I feel like crap. So yeah, I'm just stunned that I've been able to sit down and read 17 books. 17 books, and that totals 6,169 pages. 6,169 pages. To be fair, I have been increasing the number of pages I've been reading each month, but this month really takes the cake. 6,000, I know I've probably read more pages in my life. Last year in March for Marvelathon, I read 31 books in 31 days. But I was also reading, I read all of the Tea Dragon books, which have, which yes, counts as a book, but it doesn't have many pages. So, the page thing is the one that's getting me, I read, 17 novels that equaled big pages, lots of words, and my brain is just how did you do that? How did you do that? I did DNF one book this month, and I read one audiobook this month, which is included in the 17, but I read along with the audiobook. I had the audiobook on while I was reading the actual physical book, because I had the audiobook from a previous read. It was a reread. So I had the audiobook on while I was reading the physical book. So I read all of the pages with my eyes. And I'm not quite understanding how I did that. So, it's fine. With everything that's been going on this month has been an absolutely bonkers month. If you've been following my vlogs, this month has been a bonkers month for my health. I've been in A&E, I've been in the doctor's offices, I've had to have bloods done and everything. They don't know what's wrong with me. They think they know what's wrong with me, and then they're like, maybe that's not what's wrong with you. And we're having a time. So yeah, I've not been well. I've been this is brought to you by years and years of theatre as a child and Red Bull. So when this camera goes off, this is not what I'm like. I'm a pile on the floor or on the chair, because this is all the energy I'm going to expend today making myself look like I'm not friggin' dying. About an hour ago, after I ate my lunch, I was curled up in a ball on my chair watching Downton Abbey, trying to will myself to get the energy to film this. So the fact that I read 17 books that total to 6,169 pages to rewrite this round to the actual point, genuinely, I'm shocked. Just totally shocked. Average rating 4.35. Really happy with that. I've been really happy generally with the books I've been reading. So really I have had a couple of duds. I've, like I said, I DNF'd one book and there was we'll go through it. We'll go through it. It's fine. We'll go through it. We will go through it. Because I went through it this month. I will tell you that. I'm going to apologise in advance because there are books on this list that I'm going to get overly excited about. So this may be a good time to pause the video, go get a cup of tea, just liquid, snack, whatever, buckle up, because I'm very excited about some of the books on this TBR. this wrap up. I'm very, very excited about some of these books that are coming up. And I'm going to try and tamp it. But I'm very excited about this book. I'm going to do a separate video on this series that I've binged this month when I reread them and go into detail and tab them and highlight them. But I'm very excited, so I just can tell I'm about to just bleh. So just grab a snack, grab a drink, grab a blanket, prepare yourself, maybe turn the volume down a little bit. I will try and not freak out. So the first thing I read in the month of April was one of the best decisions I have ever made in my entire reading life. And that was Only When It's Us by Chloe Leese. This is book 1 in the Bergman Brothers books. Bergman Brothers series. This series, I feel like I've been reading this series for years. I've only been reading the series this month. I feel like I've been with this family my entire life. I feel like this family, I feel like I know them. I love these books. I saw the Illumicrate editions. Like we all know I got the Percy Jackson editions, right? And we all know how beautiful these are. Like, we all know how gorgeous, and with the edge, they've done one better on the Bergman Brothers books. I am telling you, whoever you've got to design them, Illumicrate, pay them more. Pay them more, because they are some of the most beautiful books I have ever seen in my life, and I will show you them when I unbox them. But Only When It's Us is the first book in this series. This follows Willa, who is a D1 athlete at college. Now, a D1 athlete is like a sort of like top tier scholarship athlete. Like, I don't pretend to understand what a D1 athlete is, but basically, like, she plays soccer, football in college to like a level where they pay for her to go to college because she plays so well, and she is looking at going pro after university, after college. Okay, and she has this professor who's a bit of a pain in her arse. We'll come back to him in a minute. Don't you worry. Not in this book, but in another book. His name is Aiden. I'll come back to him, just you remember that name. Anywho, so Willa, she has been putting all her energy into soccer and into something else, which we'll come to in a minute. This may include slight spoilers. I will try and remember to do the thing, but the spoiler is a trigger, so I'm just, yeah. Anyway, so Willa is having a little bit of an issue with this one professor called Aiden, who's been a little bit of a dick, and she has missed some classes because of her soccer. And he's like, well, why don't you ask Rye for the notes, because he's got all my notes. And she's like, well, what's so special about Rye that he gets to have all your notes? And he's like, why don't you just ask Rye for your notes? And she's like, so she goes and sits down next to Rye, and she's like, can I have your notes? And he totally ignores her. And she's like, can I have your notes? Totally ignores her. And then the class finishes, and he gets up, and he looks at her, and she glares at him for ignoring her, and he glares back, and sort of smirks, and then walks away from her. Rye, however, Rye is the Bergman brother in this story, and Rye is deaf. The cackle I let out when that is shown, like when that just, this is like the first, like very first bit of the book, by the way. Like, this is not spoilers, this is the whole point of the book. This is in the synopsis. So Rye went deaf when he was like 3 years previous, right? And that's why he's got the notes, because he can't hear. So Rye went deaf from bacterial meningitis, and then through the antibiotics. The treatment through the antibiotics is a known risk with bacterial meningitis. And so that's why he's got the notes, and that's why they that's why Aidan told her to get the notes from him, because he's got the notes because he's deaf, and Aidan is a shit, and he just is. But she's like, did you notice my tone when I said it? She's like, can I borrow the notes? He is deaf, woman! You need to speak to him properly. Anyway, taking a note. So yeah, Willa is now mad at Rye. Rye has no idea why this random woman is glaring at him. And then chaos ensues. And so Aiden's just like, I'm just gonna like partner you up for this team thing. And Willa hates Ryder for being like a dick to her. And Ryder's just like, why is this woman just glaring at me? And yeah, they fall in love because obviously they do. See, when she finds out though, she feels so bad. She feels like an asshat, as she should. These books, by the way, every single one of them has disabled rep up the wazoo. Like, someone said to Chloe Leafs, you can't have disabled characters in every one of your books. And she went, hold my beer. Hold my beer, because there is so much disability rep in all of these books. It is unreal. So yeah, so this basically follows Willa and Ryder as they have to, like, sort of work around their attraction to each other while having to deal with things that are going on in their lives, because Rye has a lot of issues with being deaf, and he doesn't speak any longer because of going deaf. He feels really self-conscious about his voice because he can't hear his own voice, and he's avoided going to doctors and audiologists and things like that. He texts to talk, and so you see his side of that and him trying to sort of work his way through navigating that. You see Willa navigating her life and her mother's illness. Her mother has cancer and is going through treatment for that, which is the second or third time she's gone through that. It's very traumatic for Willa because she is her only parent, and she's trying to navigate dealing with her mother's illness. Obviously, the cost of healthcare in America is insane, while also full-time at college and soccer and thinking about going pro with the stress, and then obviously being attracted to Ryder. And it's just, I genuinely cannot think of how to talk about these books without just like blurting out the entire plot. But these two together, honestly, just, they butt heads so much. And the thing is, like, Willa is like, this is a Grumpy Sunshine where Willa looks like she should be the sunshine, like, looks like a cinnamon roll will kill you, and Ryder looks like he could kill you, is a cinnamon roll. Like, he is just this lovely Swedish lumberjack looking, like, guy who just wants to, like, give people hugs and feed them. Like, and she is just this angry little gremlin who wants to play football and doesn't know how to control her big curly hair. Like, oh my god. I love this book. So I love this series so much, and I'll talk about more of the books later on, because like I said, I binged this series. And guess what? The Bergmans have 7 kids, and there's a book for each of them. And then I end up DNFing the Red Needle. This was like a shot in the dark book for me. Tori kind of gave me it, and she was like, this sounds like something you might like. We were both under the impression that it was historical. It is not historical. I was not getting on with the characters. They seemed really, like, bratty and just not my kind of characters. I did have a little bit of a rant on my vlog. I flicked forward, and there was just so much about the characters, like bits that I was picking up, that I just didn't really enjoy anything about the characters. And like I say, it wasn't historical like I thought. I didn't gel with it. I wasn't gelling with the writing, I wasn't gelling with the characters, and this is 555 pages long. I wasn't pushing myself through that for no payoff. I didn't want to do it, so I didn't. So it's getting on hold. So if anybody would like this, just drop me a message. I'll send you for postage. Oh, and I've got the novella that goes with it as well. And then to get me out of the kind of like from DNFing, I read Immortal Angel, which is the next in my Lindsay Sands reread. I forget who this is about. Eldaria Garcia and Gigi. Oh my god, yes, Gigi. So Gigi... instant whoop. So Gigi this is the one I forgot was about Gigi. I always forget, because Immortal Angel, there's a character who literally has wings, and I just immediately assume Angel refers to him, and it's not. So Eldaria we meet her in, when they go, wherever they go to try and get Santo to relax, and she commits an offence that will get her killed where she is. She feeds from a mortal where she's not supposed to, basically. And so she decides to run, basically. Go somewhere else where the South American Council is not in charge, and so they kind of like take her with them and go to North America where the South American Council cannot rule over her, basically. But to be fair, the guy tried to like essay her, and so she bit him. She bit him. And yeah, I don't blame her. But she didn't wait until they're in international waters to do it, and therefore the South American Council would punish her. So yeah, so she fled to North America, and she is staying with Marguerite and Julius, and so she ends up bumping into Gigi, who needs an accountant, and she is training to be an accountant. And Gigi is the Green Giant, the guy who owns the nightclub. Nightclub literally like it only opens at night. It caters to vampires. They have like specialty blood drinks, and he is Gigi the Green Giant because he's like 6'8", 6'9", and he has a 2-foot-ish roughly green mohawk. So everybody knows him as Gigi the Green Giant. And his mother was a life mate for an immortal years and years and years ago when he was just a child. And ever since he turned 18 and she told him about that, she's been trying to find him an immortal life mate because she offered to use her turn to turn him so that she wouldn't have to lose him when he got old and died. But he refused. He does not want to be an immortal, and so she's like, okay. His dad bought him the first nightclub in an attempt to have like immortal women going back and forward through his life, and so hoping that one would be his life mate. Of course, Marguerite gets there first, as she always does, and Eldaria is his life mate, and he even says to her like, I don't want to be immortal. And she's like, cool, yeah, fine. Crap. We will have to figure this out another way then. But then life or death situation happens, and he gets to a point where he almost dies, and she has to turn him to save his life. And when he wakes up, he's like, do you know what? Fair enough. I'm not mad. And she's like, you literally said you didn't want to be an immortal. And he was like, yeah, that was before someone actually tried to kill me though, and I'd rather not be dead. And she's like, fair. The thing is, right, this reminded me, I hate people, I hate it so much in books when things like that happen, like people like this vampire type books, right? And so you've got this person that doesn't want to be a vampire, so we'll say vampires, they don't want to be a vampire, right? And then something happens and someone else's hand is forced, and it is either let the person die or turn them into a vampire. And then when they wake up, they're so ungrateful. And I get it, they've had a shock, they've almost died, or they have died, etc. And they wake up and they're like, I didn't want this, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, would you rather be dead? Would you rather I had let you die? Because the option is still there. We can go get a steak right now. Like, that is don't complain. That other option is still on the table. These were the two options. If you don't want this option, that other option is still on the table. Like, why? If that was me, I would be acting like Gigi, like, do you know what? I understand why you did what you did. Thank you for saving my life. Because if you decide you don't want it, the other option is still there. Anyway, yeah, I just don't, I think people need to be more appreciative in those situations. Like, I get it, if you're stressed when you had a life or death situation, and you died, or you almost died, and something had to be done that was not an option you had. But, like, it's like those people you see that, like, people do, like, CPR on them, and they wake up and then sue them for breaking their ribs. Like, fine, next time I'll just let you die. Like, ungrateful, honestly. Like, anyway, not the point. But yeah, our new vampire book, yeah, reread. Ta-da! Moving on. Next up is the second Bergman Brothers book. Bergman Brothers book. It's so hard to say. Try and say it. It's really friggin' hard. Bergman Brothers series book. And that is Always Only You. And this follows Ren and Frankie. Ren is one of the... I don't even know what age. I can't remember what age order they go in. What the brothers are. There are actually two sisters. There are two sisters. There's Ziggy and... I can't remember what the older sister's called. We'll get to her in a minute. But yeah, there are two sisters, but it's called the Bergman Brothers series. Anyway, so Always Only You follows Ren, who is the brother, and Frankie, who is the love interest. And Ren is the oddball of the family because he chose to play ice hockey instead of playing football. And he is an NHL player. NHL player. And the kind of social media manager person is Frankie. And he has always, since he started, had this massive crush on Frankie. And Frankie's kind of always had a crush on him because she has a little bit of a weakness for redheads, but she has to stay professional. And Frankie is also a little bit crotchety because she has rheumatoid arthritis and she is small. She has rheumatoid arthritis and she walks with a cane. Like, she has a walking stick. And so, like, they all know she's disabled and they all know, like, she's the small girl in amongst all these big, small women in amongst all these big guys. So she needs to lay down the law with these guys. Like, they are all scared of her because of, like, she needs to put on this persona. But, like, well, I say she needs to put on this persona. She is how she is anyway. And Frankie is also autistic, which she hasn't told anybody about. The people, like her bosses that need to know, but the guys on the team do not know this. And she doesn't plan on telling them because she sees that as something they don't need to know about her. They just think that she's crotchety and cranky and, like, mean. But a lot of it is actually just her autism. And so Ren kind of deals with her slightly differently because there are members of his family that are autistic. And he kind of is used to the behaviours that are kind of attributed to her autism. So, like, the way that she's really blunt and, like, really straightforward and straight to the point that other people can find quite off-putting, he's very used to it in his brother and his sister who have autism. And so he doesn't read that as rude, he just reads that as, like, straightforward. And doesn't really take it the same as the other guys. So Frankie has a situation where her house is broken into and she ends up not feeling safe and not being able to stay there. And so Ren is like, look, you can come and stay with me. And she's like, absolutely not. And he's like, okay, where else are you going to go? And she's like, okay, you got me there. Because both of her friends are, like, they don't have any room in their houses for her. And her family are on the other side of the country, so she literally can't stay with them. And because she has accessibility needs because of her disability, his house is a bungalow on the beach. Like, he has everything in hand and he is more than happy and willing to make any accessibility changes that need to be made for her. Like, if she needs something, he is more than happy to adapt to it. Again, because Chloe has disability throughout her book. The dad of the Bergman brothers is an amputee. He was a soldier and he's an amputee, which we find it in the first book. Anyway, so yeah, like, the Bergmans are so used to making adaptations for people around them. It's just part of their daily life. Like, their dad was had his limb amputated when the eldest son, the eldest kids were really, really small. Like, one of them was still in the womb, so they're all really, really used to it just being a normal part of their daily lives. And so he doesn't even blink when Frankie needs help. He's just like, yeah, sure. And to Frankie, she's totally stunned that he just doesn't make a big deal out of her accessibility needs. And first she's suspicious, and then she's like, okay. And yeah, again, it's them kind of like falling in love because it's a romance novel. But just, I love, like, Ren, again, total cinnamon roll, because he just takes everything, like, on the chin. Like, he just takes such good care of the people around him, not just Frankie, but, like, he is secretly a nerd as well. He is part of a Shakespeare club. And he is sworn to secrecy. for everybody that is on, like, in this club. And he swears in Shakespearean, like, curses. It's so... I love this family so much. Like, I love Ren so much. He is such a sweetheart. These guys, like, these Bergmans are just big Swedish softies, honestly. Again, I don't think I can say any more without just, like, spoiling it. But also know that the man cubs, which are what they call the youngest two boys, Oliver and Viggo, they also refer to them as the twins, because they are near identical, other than one's blonde and one's ginger, or brunette, ginger-ish, and they are born exactly a year apart. Also get involved in this, and they are just absolute menaces. But I love them so much, and they are in the later books, so again, we'll get to them in a minute. Next up was the third Bergman Brothers book, but this is a Bergman sister book, because this is the eldest daughter, and her name is Freya, and Freya has been married to her husband, who is, we said we'd get back to him in a minute, this is Aiden's story. Aiden is the professor from the first one, and yes, he is married to Freya, the eldest Bergman sister, and it's not hard to be the eldest, there's only two of them. But yeah, so Freya and Aiden have been married for nearly a decade now, but their marriage is kind of on the rocks. They have been trying to get pregnant with failure after failure after failure. Aiden has been working and working and working because he wants to make sure his family are financially secure, and all that he is doing is working himself into the ground and working his family to the point where it is untenable. He is pushing Freya away, and she is just getting to a point where she can't deal with it anymore, and so she tells him he needs to take some time and work out what he wants, because she is sick of trying to talk to him and have him just totally stonewall her, because that's all that's been happening in their marriage. Basically, what has been happening is that Aiden has been having a lot of issues mentally. He grew up in a household where there was never really any money. Him and his mum struggled by so much that it caused very, very deep-seated, and I mean like really deep-rooted, deep-seated financial anxiety within him. And he has not been keeping up very well with his therapy, partially because therapy costs money, and he has had this sort of surge of panic that is triggered because of the thought of Freya and him having a baby. He is terrified that if something happens to him, that Freya and the baby will be left with nothing, and that they will end up homeless and destitute, and he just can't deal with that, and he is just combusting inside. But he also can't tell Freya that. He can't tell her, he can't bring himself to tell her that. While on the other side of it, Freya is sitting there and she's crumbling. She's absolutely falling apart because she doesn't know how to help her husband. And they are getting to a point where they don't know if they can continue in this marriage. But everybody knows that Aiden and Freya are unbreakable. And so all the Bergmans get involved. They go away on a family holiday for their parents' anniversary, and the brothers decide they are going to fix this marriage, because they love Aiden like a brother, and he's been there for most of the younger ones' lives, and obviously they love Freya. So yeah, they all get involved, and sometimes it's not as easy to fix as you'd think. So this is a second chance romance, and it deals so much with mental health. Both Freya and Aiden both have to look at themselves and care about themselves before they can really come back and care about each other. This is not one where this isn't like the Sarah Hogan book, You Deserve Each Other, where they're being cruel with each other. They very much love each other, and it is the fact that they love each other that makes it so poignant. Like they're lost within themselves, and they are relying on their love for each other to be that guide rope out. And what they don't understand is that they need to be sort of secure within themselves first. They need to do the work on themselves first, and then they can come back to each other. Like their marriage is solid. Their marriage is rock solid, but their own mental health, that's the problem. And they've never been able to sort of turn inward and look at that. I love this book. I love the way it dealt with, this is less not less of a romance. It's, like I say, their marriage is absolutely rock solid. There's not a single moment in here where either of them go, maybe I'd be better with someone else. It's every single thing they do is from a place of absolute pure love. And even if, this is one of those things where even if the marriage was to completely break down, they would still completely love each other, and it would be for the best with both of them, because it is like, that marriage is rock solid, that their love is rock solid, but they both need to work on themselves to be able to fix this kind of block that's happened within the marriage. And yeah, the mental health rep in this, especially when it comes to Aiden, like you don't get mental health rep like that for men. Like, the way he puts himself in this way of being the provider, despite the fact that he knows logically Freya makes more money than him, that she could pay for the house on her own if she had to, and all the bills. The fact that she gets all of her healthcare and stuff through work. The baby's healthcare would be through work. The fact that she has a family with 7 or 6 siblings who all make good money. One of them is literally like, at least 2 of them make like stupid money. I mean, stupid money. One of them is an NHL hockey player, and the other one is a world-renowned artist. They make dumb, like stupid money that you can't even like my little brain can't get my head round. Like, they can just like buy a house on a whim sort of money. Like, and he knows logically that if he's not in the picture, Freya will be fine. But he cannot get past this fear of making sure that nothing can touch her and the baby, even though they don't have a baby. Like, the framing of the way that we see, or we have men as the protectors in this world, of providers, the sheer pressure that we put on them is never spoken about. And the way that Chloe Leese has done this, while also affording Freya her independence and showing that Aiden doesn't see Freya as lesser for that. That he understands that Freya is completely independent and completely not reliant on him, while still having that internal struggle, is just incredible. I love these two. I love this book, and it's something we see recurrently in Aiden later on in further books, that he still struggles with this, even though he's working on it, and just, yeah. I love it so much. I know we're not very far through, and this video is already a little bit long, so I'm going to try and go a little bit faster. Next up was The Warm Hands of Ghosts by Catherine Arden. Again, beautiful edition of this book. This is a World War I historical magical realism book. Yes, I think that made sense. So this is Catherine Arden's first foray into adult historical. I think the Isabella the Nightingale is kind of more like young adult-ish. Kind of. This is specifically like adult. And this follows, I can't remember the characters' names, I'm terrible with characters' names. This follows Laura and Freddie Ivan, who are siblings. And Freddie has gone to war and has gone missing. And Laura receives a box of his things, and yet she doesn't believe that he is dead, because she's received both of his dog tags when she should only have received one, because one stays with the body, one goes to the family. And she's received his clothes, but there are no bloodstains or any damage to them at all, where there should be if he died of anything really to do with war. And so Laura decides that she is going to go find him. Laura herself was involved in the war. She worked as a nurse in the front lines, very close to where Freddie went missing, and so she decides she is going back and she is going to find out what happened to Freddie. Now, it's not going to be easy for her because she was injured and discharged from the army, and so she talks this wealthy woman who is running this hospital on the front lines into taking her over as a nurse to work in this hospital. We also then see Freddie's point of view from months previous when he goes missing, and he is trapped initially. You see him as he wakes up trapped in this pillbox which has been blown up and collapsed with a German soldier. and I can't talk apparently, and he is trapped with just this German soldier and a bunch of bodies. And at first he thinks he's dead, and then he realises that being dead would not hurt this much. And he lies there. And he lies there, and he lies there. And then he thinks, why am I not dying? And so he decides with this German soldier that they need to get out of there. And so they work their way out, and they kind of pick a direction, and they just start walking. And it's kind of split between, you follow Laura as she's trying to get back to find Freddie, and as she hunts for Freddie, trying to find out what happened to him in one timeline, kind of months after she's found out about, or months after Freddie's gone missing. And then you jump back to Freddie months later with the German soldier as they're trying to find anybody. They don't know if they're heading back towards German lines or back towards the Allied lines. And so they are walking in, and they kind of end up befriending each other. And it's such a strange, this book to me, it felt like it tried to do too much at once. There's elements of magical realism and elements of what feels almost like Celtic or Germanic folklore in here, but not quite. It kind of only brushes the surface of it. There's a lot when you follow Laura, but it doesn't quite go as deep. You spend a lot of time with Laura just trying to get to the front, and it kind of draws the story and drags the story a lot. I did enjoy the writing style, I did enjoy a lot about it, but it just felt like a lot of nothing, if that makes sense. It wasn't bad, it just wasn't much, if that makes sense. I don't know. I really still don't know what I think about this book. There was definitely, I could see where she was weaving in the folklore and the folk tales like she did with the Bear and the Nightingale, but she did that in the Bear and the Nightingale over 3 books, and you could tell that the pacing was similar to if she had 3 books to do it, and she didn't have 3 books to do it, she had 1 book to do it, and I feel like that let her down a bit. So yeah, overall disappointing, but I still really enjoyed it, and I would still definitely read more from Catherine Arden. She can only get better. So I don't agree when people are saying this is it's being put forward as a queer book, and I understand why, but I don't agree. You cannot call it a queer book if you have like half a sentence at the end where something queer happens. That's not a queer book. But that's not her fault. That is to do with the publishers, and that is to do with the advertising and the marketing. But yes, it is not a queer book. Don't read it if you're trying to get a queer representation, because that's not what you're going to get in this book. If you want a book that is murky and one that you don't always know what's going on, it kind of drags out, and I don't even know. It's been weeks since I read this, and I still don't know what to think about it. So yeah, I'm just gonna a little bit like this review. That's how the book kind of goes. Next, I read With You Forever, which is the 4th Bergman Brothers book. I honestly, I don't know what I expected from this book, but it definitely wasn't what I got. This, in a good way. Like, I didn't know where they were going to go with this. This follows Axel, who's the oldest Bergman brother. I just want to say Bergman brother book every time now. Axel is the eldest, and he is also autistic, and he's the artist, and he's very much a bit of a loner, like a self-described loner. He just wants to live in his cottage, making his art up in the Pacific Northwest, and be left alone. That's all he wants. He can take his family in small doses, and that's about it. That's all he wants from life. But then along comes Rooney. Rooney is the best friend of the female main character from the first book, whose name I can't even remember now, even though I was talking about her earlier. And she was her friend from college. She also was a D1 athlete. And she has had, again, the biggest crush on Axel Bergman from the moment she set eyes on him. But of course, Axel has always been quite cold towards her, not because he doesn't like her. In fact, he really likes her. It's just because, again, with Axel being autistic, he doesn't show his affection in the same way or the expected way that someone who is neurotypical would show their affection. And so Ray doesn't know how really to take Axel. She kind of takes him at face value and thinks that he doesn't like her. And Rennie's been having a little bit of a time of it at the point in time of the book. So she has been studying for her law degree, but hasn't really been studying for her law degree because she has been in hospital. She has Crohn's disease and or colitis. No, Crohn's. Colitis. I can't remember now. She has an IBD, irritable bowel disease, inflammatory bowel disease, my god. And she has been in a massive flare-up that has caused her to have to stay in hospital for months. She's had to withdraw from university for the time being, and she's not told anybody. She does not let anybody know just how poorly she has been. If you know anything about inflammatory bowel diseases, you know that they are nothing to mess about with. They can cause serious, and I mean serious damage. So she doesn't want anybody to know about it until they absolutely have to, and up until now nobody's had to know about it. All they know is that she needs a break. And so character from the first one has said that she can use the A-frame. The A-frame is the house that the family all share up in the Pacific Northwest in Washington, and like Washington State, not Washington DC, and they all take turns. Like they all have like a lot of time that they're allowed to use it, and at this point in time it is Rye and I can't remember her name. It's their turn and they're not going, so they've told Rooney she can use it. They know, but she doesn't know that Axel is currently there, and so they're trying to like do a little setup there. What she doesn't know though, and what nobody knows, but only Axel knows, is that there's been a massive pipe burst in the house, and it has wrecked, and I mean wrecked the house. Like completely wrecked the house. And Axel's got builders and stuff out there, and they are trying to patch it up as best they can. But the builders he's got out there, who are his friends, have said it is basically a refit. Like they need to tear the place back to studs and refit the place, and it is going to be an amount of money that they wrote down on a piece of paper and told him not to open until they left. Which normally isn't a problem for Axel because, like I said previously, world-renowned artist, he can sell 1-2 paintings and redo the work, plus add an extension on if he really wants to. Which is fine because he's got a cabin on the grounds further up. That's where he lives, that's his house, it's not a problem. He can get the work done, nobody will ever know, his family don't need to know, and they won't need to feel like they need to shoulder any of the cost because he doesn't show his affection by, you know, being affectionate. He shows his affection by taking care of things like this. But then Rennie arrives and she's expecting to stay at the A-frame, and he can't tell her what's going on because if he tells her what's going on, then she's going to tell the family. But Rennie's not that kind of person. So when Rennie finds out what's going on, she's like, well, how can I help? And Axel's like, you're not going to tell everybody? And she's like, well, no, if you don't want me to because of this reason, like, of course I'm not going to, but how can I help? And yeah, the freakiest thing happened. So turns out Axel had an uncle. Well, they all had an uncle, but Axel specifically had this windfall from an uncle, and it would be enough money to completely fix the A-frame and add an extension if he wanted to. They end up adding an extension because the family just keeps growing. The only stipulation is that well, Axel had to get married to get the money. Stupid idea. Totally stupid idea. So of course Rennie's like, sure, I'll marry you. And Axel's like, excuse me? What? So of course, marriage of convenience. But not so marriage of convenience because of course Axel and Rennie are both secretly in love with each other. Because they always are. But yeah, there's also a dog that Axel has adopted, but he's not adopted. It just appeared one day and he started feeding it and he made it a little house because it won't come in the house. Because it's scared of the house. He's so cute. I love the dog so much. It's got a little limp. It's a whippet, not a whippet, a lurcher. It's so cute. Anyway, yeah, so marriage of convenience, they don't tell anybody what's going on. And Axel has also been struggling. They need the money from the uncle because Axel has been struggling to paint because the only thing he can think of is Rooney. because he is so besotted by Rooney since she kissed him playing charades in the last book because she got tricked by the other family members to kiss him. Honestly, they just meddle all the time. But yeah, so it was just, I love this. Honestly, these two, they're so, like, again, like, Rooney with her disability, Axel with his autism. There's a lot of autism in Chloe Leese's books because because Chloe Leese has autism, she knows what it's like from her perspective, so she can add a lot in her books. But she also, whenever there is a disability that she doesn't have in her books, she has people who have that disability help her with it so that she knows that she's not messing it up, you know? Which is just so smart. But yeah, so yeah, it's just... It means that Rooney gets to stay away from everybody while she's recovering from being in hospital and not have to tell everybody what happened. It means that Axel gets his money and he can fix the house. And it means that we get to watch them all fall in love, which is hilarious because she then goes and stays in his cabin while the house is being done. And because the cabin only has one room, he's like, I'll sleep in a tent outside. And she's like, you'll what now? And he's like, I'm going to sleep in a tent outside. She's like, why? He's like, because I cannot be in the same room as you. He's honestly, I love Axel. He's so funny. So funny. I just, don't worry, there's only one more of these to go because I've not read the sixth one yet. Just bear with me. Next up, I read Waypoints by Sam Heughan, and this is a non-fiction about Sam Heughan, basically, who plays Jamie Fraser in Outlander. And this is him. He decides on a whim one day, I'm not even kidding, to do the West Highland Way, which is a nearly 100-mile trek from sort of north of Glasgow to Fort William? Is it Fort William? I don't remember. It's up north. And he literally decides the night before that he's going to do it in October. And he goes out, buys all the stuff, and just the next day starts walking and realises that was a bad idea. But he does it, he does it all the way. And this sort of flip-flops between him on the trail and what he's thinking and where he is and things that are going on, the people he meets and the landscape and things like that. And it also talks about his journey as an actor, so from doing certain productions in school, university, gap years and jobs that he did, and then basically until he kind of makes it on Outlander. And yeah, it was so interesting to see the journey that he had and the fact that, and I suppose I feel like every actors or celebrity stories like this, like they were just about to give up when they got the big break, and it's just seeing the kind of like, there were so many points which I would have given up and he didn't. So absolute kudos to him. Like if I ever meet him, I will be saying that, like, well done to you for keeping going when so many people would have given up. And again, with the West Highland Way, like there were so many points when I would have given up. And saying that though, I don't mind sleeping in a tent. I say that without the chronic pain, I don't mind sleeping in a tent. He obviously does, because he was not best pleased. And then he was like, "Why don't I just stay at the hotels on the way?" Yeah, smart move. Because somebody else was like, "Yeah, I'm just staying in the hotels," and he was like, "Wait, what?" It's like, "Yeah, just stay in the hotels." But no, that's what happens when you do things on a whim. But yeah, really enjoyed this. I felt this in some places. I do think there were some places as well where you could see that he was becoming a bit more Americanized. I do feel that sometimes you can see him becoming a bit more Americanized, and I don't know. Everybody's journey is different, and I think it would be interesting to, if he feels like an interesting person to speak to. But it's nice to see somebody from Scotland, and the fact that he still really, really loves the country, and the fact that he still really loves to bring tourism and bring people here and show them how wonderful a place it is. So I really enjoyed it. Talking of Scotland, next was Just Like That by Nina Kay. This is about Jess, who is just bossing her job. She's been promoted, and then she's an event manager, and she is absolutely bossing all these events that she's doing. She's getting loads of like donations and stuff like that. And then as she's promoted, her brother has a massive stroke and his care needs are really like round the clock. But her parents live over in Spain. They are the worst. And she decides that she's going to look after her brother. And her boss is like, well, you can't do that with all the contracts you have, so I'm demoting you. Which I'm pretty sure there's probably some kind of law against that. But anyway, so she gets given these kind of like, not joke jobs, but almost joke jobs. And one of the jobs she's given is to kind of help save this animal park. And so she goes to this, I think it's in East Lothian, one of the Lothians. And so she goes there and the park is kind of dead. Like there's no foot traffic, there's nobody visiting, their funds are really, really low and they need to get things going if they want to stay open. And so she works on different plans to get them going again, and she wants to try and have this as her shining star to show her boss that she can take on big projects again. And in the meantime, she has this kind of like hate-love relationship with the head keeper. It was really, I don't know, I liked this, but it was also really short and I feel like it needed fleshed out a little bit more, you know? If this was somebody's first attempt at like a short story novella type thing, like fair enough, but I feel like it just needed a little bit more fleshing out. I'm definitely not mad at it. There was a couple of bits where I was just a bit like, that was a choice. That's a choice to make, but you know, each to their own. And there's a little sun bear in this that's my favourite character. Anyway, yeah, so really enjoyed it, but I feel like it's under 300 pages and I think it's noticeable that it was under 300 pages. Next, I reread Heartless by Elsie Silver. This is the second in the Chestnut Springs series, and this follows Cade, who is the oldest of the Eaton boys, and he is a single father and he needs a nanny. In walks Willa with her teeny tiny shorts and her giant ass attitude. Willa is the best friend of the main character from the first book, Summer. She doesn't really have anything to do this summer because her brother has shut the bar that she works in normally, and her horse that she does jumping with has had to have an operation, and so he can't really jump or do anything. You know, he is on field rest and she is working to make sure that he has the best of everything, and so she is not going to dream of putting him in danger of getting hurt from her trying to ride him. And so she's kind of a free spirit this summer and thought maybe she'd come through to Chestnut Springs, visit Summer, and Summer ropes her into helping out Cade. Cade does not want her there. Yeah. Cade wants someone to look after his son, but he is looking for like a matron. He is looking for some kind of nun. He is looking for somebody who will basically doesn't exist. Because he wants someone that will run around with his son and keep him entertained, but someone who will not be interesting at the same time. You know, like he just wants somebody that just doesn't exist. But of course, his son falls in love with Willa straight away. He is like 4 or 5 years old or something like that, and Willa is a bag load of fun. But unfortunately, Cade also really likes the look of Willa because, I mean, it's Willa. She's gorgeous, she's spunky, she is hilarious, and she does not take any of Cade's bullshit. So Willa ends up moving in to the house for the summer, and, well, chaos ensues anywhere that Willa is. She is looking after what's his son called? That's terrible. Can't believe I can't remember what his son's called. She basically looks after his son to the day, and they end up falling for each other very quickly. Like, they just get on like a house on fire, which is not hard with Willa. Like, I'm surprised the house didn't end up on fire with Willa. Let's face it. Like, if you've met Willa in any of these, like, she's the one in the first book that keeps texting Summer saying, "Save a horse, ride a cowboy." Like, this is Willa. I love Willa. She's absolutely hilarious. This is an age gap romance as well, because Willa is 25, 26-ish. And Kate is 34, 35-ish. He is like I said, single dad, runs the ranch, and doesn't really care about dating or anything. All he cares about is looking after his son, looking after the ranch, looking after his dad, looking after his family. He is effectively the head of the family, other than the fact that his dad is still around, because he has taken on all of the responsibility since their mum died. And yeah, he doesn't really let himself be taken care of, and Willa kind of like kicks that door down. I love this. I forgot, like, I didn't enjoy this the same the first time round, but this time round I absolutely just, my heart broke for Cade, and I just enjoyed it so much. This is one of those books that has the kind of accidental pregnancy trope in it, and this is again one where I feel like it's done not right. I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do it. Well, I suppose there is a right or wrong way to do it, but like, each story has its merit, and there's reasons why people may do, is what I mean. But this is done in a way where I feel like it's less kind of like, there's a point to it. It's not just, and it's happily ever after and they have babies. There's a point to this. It is reflective of the story, and there is a plot point to it, not just and they had babies, you know. There is a point to the story. It goes along with the plot point, and there's a deeper meaning behind it, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. Accidental pregnancy, you say? Lizzie Blake's best mistake. I cannot say this friggin' title to save my life. Yeah, so this entire book is about an accidental pregnancy, and I did not know that. And I was sitting there reading it, and I was like, I think she's going to end up pregnant. It's in the synopsis, dumbass. Honestly, the whole book, the entire book is about it. So this is about Lizzie Blake. Lizzie Blake has very badly managed ADHD. Her and her doctor are trying so many different medications, and they either do not work or work for a little while and then stop working. And so Lizzie is having a struggle bus. And then one night she meets Rake, and she sleeps with Rake. And then the next day she goes back and meets Rake again, and she sleeps with Rake again. And did I mention she has ADHD? And one of the problems with ADHD, you're not always consistently remembering certain things like your pills, like birth control. And so it turns out Lizzie really hasn't been taking her birth control properly. And you know, when you do things like that, and when you use expired condoms, generally speaking, you tend to end up pregnant. So Lizzie contacts Rick to let him know. Oh, did I mention Rick is from Sydney, Australia, and Lizzie lives in Philadelphia, the US. And so she contacts Rick, and she's like, by the way, I'm pregnant. And he's like, huh? She's like, mm-hmm. And she explains to him what happened, and he's like, okay. And she's like, you do not need to be involved. This is entirely my fault. And he's like, no, not entirely my. I had to be there for this to happen. She's like, no, but it was I did not take my pill properly, and I did not check if my condoms were expired. And he's like, I also did not check if the condoms were expired, so this is also my fault. Like, he immediately is like, yeah, no, both of us were involved. Both of us are at fault. And yeah, immediately it's just like, I want to be involved. And as it turns out, his boss had just asked him if he wanted to be transferred to the US office in Philadelphia, which is why he was there in the first place, because he had a big, like, business thing in Philadelphia. And she's like, I don't think you should uproot your life for me. And he's like, it's not for you, it's for the fact that you're carrying my baby, and I would like to be involved with my baby, and also I'm a dual citizen, so I can just move there if I want to. And she's like, oh, cool. And so he moves over, and they kind of just have to wing it through. So Lizzie ends up getting a new job, because her old one, again, timekeeping, ADHD, not great, and her boss is a bit of a douchebag. And this whole book is just kind of Lizzie and Rake kind of trying to work through, I wouldn't call this romance, I would call this a contemporary, because it's more Lizzie and Rake trying to deal with the consequences of Lizzie ending up pregnant, Lizzie dealing with the consequences of being pregnant with ADHD that is not being managed, while also working and living in a city where it's very difficult to live and rent and work already, while your family are crap, like her parents are judgmental and horrible, her friends were judging her, like it's just, she's being treated horribly by people because of her ADHD anyway, and then they're like, whenever she tells them she's pregnant, they're like, see, we knew you're a mess. And Rake's just like, excuse me? And the fact that basically a stranger is the only one that's standing up for you. It's just, like, this really upset me in some places. But the whole book is just pure chaos. Like, the whole book feels like it fell out of an ADHD person's head, which it did, because Maisie Eddings, the author, has ADHD. And so, yeah, I think this is a great representation of ADHD. And look, it's blurred by Chloe Lease. How amazing is that? I can't believe it's taken me this long to read a Chloe Lease book. Even though this is Maisie Eddings, but, you know, she blurbs all the books I love. Anyway, yeah, this is, basically just them dealing with the whole pregnancy thing. And, I really enjoy this. If you saw my vlog, you'll know the fact that he's called Rake just threw me off the entire thing, so. I can't. Who calls her kid Rake? And this is the last one I'll be talking about for the Bergman Brothers, I promise, is Everything for You. And this is book 5 of 7 of the Bergman Brothers books. And this is Oliver and Gavin. Oliver is the Bergman brother. He is one of the man cubs, but man cub no longer. This jumps in time 4 years. So it starts off where he is at college and he has a really bad breakup with his boyfriend. And then it jumps forward 4 years where he is on the Galaxy soccer team, which is a professional team. And who is also on the team but the grump known as Gavin, who used to be a player in the UK and he moved over to the US, and he's getting to the point where he should really be thinking about retiring before his body does it for him. But Gavin has been one of those players who Oliver has always looked up to, and he was thrilled to be on the same team as, and Gavin is the captain and just really doesn't like Oliver, and Oliver is basically trying to kill him with kindness, because 1, Oliver has always been taught to be kind to people, and 2, Oliver is a little shit. But that all kind of blows up in their faces when they are made co-captains. Neither of them want to be made co-captain with each other because they just can't stand to be around each other. Their personalities clash so badly, so badly, and they just try and try and try to get a rise out of each other in so many different ways. But of course, as we know, they're going to end up together because this is a romance and this is how it works. And so they're put into situations where they are, forced proximity is one of those, they're just put into forced proximity situations. Like, they go to a hotel and they are booked into the same room on purpose by the coach, and she's like, when they tell her, she's like, oops. And then they're like, there's only one bed in the room, and she's like, oops. I was like, I actually sent a photo of the book and I was like, there's only one bed. I love forced proximity and only one bed tropes. I love it so much. Like, so much. Like, I love it so like, I'm just that person that's like, put them together and make them get on. Like, anyway, yeah, so, they also, just by chance, live next door to each other. Like, but Gavin is also that kind of guy where, like, he likes you to think he's this grumpy, nasty, like, grungy sort of person. His best friend's an old man. His best friend is in his 70s. And Gavin's only 34, right? Again, this is age gap. Because, again, Oliver's, like, 24, 25. And Gavin is, like, 34. And Gavin's, like, best friend, all of his friends are, like, in their 70s and 80s. And they come over for, like, weekly poker nights. And they all get involved with getting him and Oliver together, which is just so beautiful. This does deal with homophobia within football. And it deals with it, like, it's not funny. It's not funny. It's not funny. But like Gavin is so funny, but he's not funny. It's not funny what happens. Because there is a scene where Oliver is called a slur on the field. The slur is not in the book. It is just said that he is called a slur. Like Oliver hears someone say a slur. Like on the page it says the words, it says the words that like the other player called Oliver a slur. Like the word slur is used, the slur itself is not used. Like there's no, you know what I mean? I hope that makes sense. Like the language isn't used, you're just told that the language has been used on page, if that makes sense. So you don't have to look at the language, you're just informed that the language has been used. And Oliver like freezes up. He's never been verbally abused like that, especially not on the pitch by another player. Gavin, however, Gavin is older. Gavin has been through more. Gavin also knows the innocence of Oliver when it comes to things like that. So Gavin immediately just whoop, like he is in there like a shot. He goes and Oliver's like, no, you don't. Like he just, he's to like haul him out. Like nope, we're not doing this. You're not getting yourself thrown off the pitch for this. And it is swiftly and immediately dealt with by the ref. Like the ref and the coach are over, and the coach is like, you're not letting this off. Like, you're not letting this guy off with this. I am not standing here and letting my players be abused like that. You will deal with this right now. Or else we're all of us walking off this pitch right now. Like, they immediately and swiftly and zero tolerance deal with it on the page. So, like, if that is something that does trigger you, please know the words are not used on the page, and it's dealt with swiftly and with absolutely zero tolerance. Is like, just absolutely not. Like, just immediately. Yeah, I didn't think I was going to like this one as much as the others, but I really, really did. I'm so looking forward to reading Ziggy's book is next. I'm so excited. Next is Furyborn by Claire Legrand. This is a epic fantasy about two queens. One is the Sun Queen, one is the Blood Queen, and the coming of the two queens heralds the release of the angels, which were previously put into like a pit and caged by the seven saints of the world. This is a world in which they have like a monotheistic god, like a capital G god, and they have the seven saints who have the seven power represent the seven abilities that they have, like all people have, and they were like the most powerful of these things, and they kind of like managed to fight back the angels and put them in this pit. And the coming of the two queens is the sort of heralding of the angels getting loose, and one of the queens was to ruin the world and one of them is to save the world. And you follow Riel and Elania, who we assume are the Blood and the Sun Queen, whichever way round they may be. I don't know, I've not read the trilogy, I've only read the first book. And we follow Riel in one timeline as she is kind of being tested to discover if she could be one of these queens. And then we follow Elania in another timeline, and she is a kind of mercenary, assassin, bounty hunter thing, and she kind of gets wrapped up in the politics when girls start going missing, and then somebody from her past comes back for her, but she doesn't know they're from her past, and then she gets kind of embroiled in this whole thing. There was a lot going on in this book. This book has like, I'm sure if you read fantasy, like epic fantasy, you'll be able to keep up with what's going on in this book. I do not read epic fantasy, and therefore I lost the thread of what was going on in this book, and so I cannot tell you what happened in this book. I know what happened in this book, but I can't tell you what happened in this book. I just have one very prominent bit at the start of the book scarred into my head. So if you don't like a book that has harm to animals, don't read this book. Or skip the first few chapters of Riel's point of view. I quite liked this book. Again, this book reminded me of so many other books that I've read. It reminded me of Red Queen. It reminded me of the Truth Witch books. It reminded me of other books. I said it in my vlog. There were so many books as I was going through it that I could think of that it reminded me of, and yet I just couldn't get myself through this without I'm not an epic fantasy girly. It's not for me. Next up is Immortal Born by Lindsay Sands. I had to read this to get me out of a slump because otherwise I was going to cry after Fear Born. I'm not going to lie. And this follows Ali and Magnus, and Ali has an immortal son, and she does not know what to do with him because the people that are after them have kind of accidentally found them, because when she was trying to steal blood from the blood bank to feed her son, she passed out because she's low on blood because she has been feeding her son. Luckily, Magnus and Tybo also were very close, and so they got sent out from the rogue hunters to find out what the hell is going on. And of course, she is Magnus's life mate. And so they are kind of there to find out what's going on, help her, and get Magnus his life mate. This book, there was a couple of bits in this book that I absolutely loved, and there was one point in this book where I was like, girl, what are you doing? And by girl, I mean Lindsay, why? There's a whole section in this book where like they go from like 0 to 60 with like getting married, and I'm like, no, like this is really abnormal for you. Like Ali gets like, basically, they're at the park and she's like, okay, I'll be your life mate. And they're like, cool, let's go down to the courthouse. And she's like, I'm sorry, what? And before she knows it, she's in her dress and at the courthouse. Like, that was unnecessary. But other than that, I love the book. This really showed like how she feels about families, and like the way she's built these families as well in this book. I love it. This follows Ali. Like I say, she had her son. Her son is not technically her son. Her son is her friend's son. Her friend Stella, who was an immortal, she was kidnapped by Abaddon, who is an immortal that we hear about previously, and he kidnaps her and her husband and turns them both into rogues, or as part of his nest. And it turns out her husband is his life mate, and so they have this plan to have her have a son and turn him into the new Leonius. And so they let her out into the world to raise this child, have the baby, raise the child until he is at a point where they can take him back. But she runs and they kind of follow her until she realises they're following her and gives the baby to Ali, and then kills herself and makes it look like Liam died as well. And then Ali goes on the run with him. But what they don't know is that they have been tracking them the entire time, and so the run has been futile. Magnus, on the other hand, he is old as hell. He's not as old as Lucian, of course. Nobody is as old as Lucian, but he's old. And so he's seen a lot in his life, and he is also one of the ones that wants to bring Abaddon down. And so he has extra sort of fuel for wanting to bring Abaddon down now that he is after his life mate. This book is not one of my favourites. It is probably one of my least favourites, but it's so nice to be back in Port Henry and see all of the characters that we left in Port Henry, because we kind of dot back and forward between like Canada, New York, Port Henry, and like all these different places and see all these different characters, and it is so nice to see characters we haven't seen in a while. But yeah, this was it was fine. It was good. I still love this series. I still love these books, but in amongst the other books in this series, this is one of my least favourites. Next up is the +1 by Maisie Eddings. This is the third in these sort of companion novels. So Lizzie Blake's Best Mistake is the second, Brush with Love is the first one, and this is Indira, and she is one of the friend group in that thing. And she has just walked in on her boyfriend with another woman, and she's like, nah, F this, I'm out. And so she grabs a bunch of her stuff, shoves her cat into a cat carrier, and she like legs it out and gets over to her brother's house. And yeah, who's there but her childhood nemesis, who's also her brother's best friend, because her brother's getting married and he is there because he's the best man. And so she decides to like stay with the brother for a while, and he is also staying with her brother because of the wedding, and they have to stay together. Not in the same room, but like they get stuck together because she's obviously like in the wedding, he's in the wedding. It's so funny. They get like forced proximity. Love it. You know I love it. Anyway, he has also just come back from, I can't remember exactly where, but he works for a kind of fictionalized version of like Doctors Without Borders. So he goes to countries where they are in wars or civil wars or have famines, etc. Mostly war-torn countries is where he goes to specifically, because he is a trauma surgeon, and so he has seen lots of things that really people are not built to see, and so he is currently struggling with PTSD and a lot of mental health issues that come because of that, and he is kind of like almost counting down the days of going back, but in a way that the more it comes closer, the more deteriorated his mental health gets, which unfortunately for him, Indira is a psychiatrist and she knows this, and so she is kind of trying to gently push this while also kind of still falling for him, because he is her brother's best friend. She's grown up with him, she knows him, and while they always rankled each other and got on each other's nerves, there was also that kind of undercurrent of attraction, you know, as it always goes. And he's obviously always been attracted to her, because again, how it always goes. And so it kind of follows these two. She's dealing with a lot of hurt from her ex and a lot of hurt from things in her past because of her behaviour of her dad. She's dealing with his issues with his PTSD and such. And I said it in my vlog as well, there's a part of this where he has to stand up in front of a panel of doctors and basically prove that he is ill, prove that this PTSD is legitimate and that he's actually ill, and that it's incredibly disgusting and really, really maddening. Infuriating, in fact. And I feel like she knows what it's like. I'm pretty sure she said in the author's note that a lot of the PTSD rep comes from when she was severely abused as a teenager. And so I can imagine she probably had to prove herself and prove the effect that certain things had on her in front of people like that who didn't believe invisible illnesses exist. And it is just disgusting that that is the kind of thing that we have to go through to prove that we are in pain. Be mental, physical, emotional. But yeah, this was probably my favourite of the 3 of the books that she wrote. I just think the mental health rep in this was incredible, and I really enjoyed the characters so much. Next, I read Walking on Sunshine by Giovanna Fletcher. This is the last Giovanna Fletcher book I have to read. I finally managed to get it read. This is about 3 friends, and they used to have a 4th friend, Pia, but unfortunately Pia died. There's literally a line in this that said, and then Pia died. And I was like, I literally have a friend called Pia. I was like, I sent her a photo and she was like, wow. Yeah, so this is about a group of friends, and one of them is married to Pia, so I can't remember the names again. Mike, Pia, Vicky and Zaza. So Mike and Pia were married, and Vicky and Zaza were their other 2 friends. And Vicky and Pia unfortunately had cancer, and unfortunately that cancer did take her life. And so this is a book, so Pia in this had died months or so previous, and this is kind of like the after effects of it. So she had these rules, and these set of rules and guidelines for them that they were to do certain things so long after she died. So so many months afterwards they were to like go through her clothes and things, and they end up going, they find this note that says, just do it, just go. Talking about like go on a trip or a holiday or go hiking or go like whatever it is, just go, just do it, just grab your stuff and just go. And so they decide that they are going to go to Peru and go to Machu Picchu, but not quite right now, because Vicky has kids and a husband, and Zaza has a job that she needs to, you know, give notice to for holidays, and Mike has a big project that he's been working on. And so they decide to go in 3 months. And in 3 months they go, and they go on this trail with a guide, and it's just the 3 of them and the guide and the staff, like the cook and the Sherpas and medics and stuff, like just the people that need to go basically on this trip for whatever guide thing they need to do. And no other tourists is what I meant. And it is basically them doing this and watching them, being with them as they go and as they kind of break down and re-knit themselves together, basically realising that kind of just realising where they've lost themselves and how they can get back to themselves. And it's such a hard book to describe because it feels like each thing's such a personal journey for them. And I kind of get like, it sounds really cheesy, but I also kind of get where G's coming from with this book, because this book was written kind of almost in response to one of her friends dying from cancer. And G herself has done treks like the Kilimanjaro and things like that with Copperfield, and it was actually, I think, Chris from Copperfield who founded Copperfield, which is a cancer charity, who do great work. I will link them below. And she died of cancer and was good friends with G, and she does all these treks, like I say, for Copperfield. So I think a lot of experience from that was put into this book. So it's hard to really rate it in a sense, because on the one hand it wasn't very like action packed and nothing much happened. There wasn't really, I don't know, but at the same time I cried through this entire book. You can really tell that it's written by somebody who knows what it's like to lose someone, and you really recognise the feelings if you've lost someone, especially somebody young who shouldn't have died, who should still be here. And I've never been on one of those treks or anything, so I don't know what it's like. But I can imagine that, well, I suppose I have those moments as well with my chronic illness where I get to a point where I just can't anymore, and I have one of my breakdowns, and I just can't anymore. And in those moments you do find a weird strength that you never realised you had. So I don't know, maybe it's kind of like that. Like I said, it's personal kind of journeys. So yeah, this is so unlike her other books, but I can completely see why she wrote it. And I'm glad not to have it on my TBR anymore, because it just felt like a weight on my shoulders. So I'm glad to have read it. Next up, I read Funny Story by Emily Henry. This is about Daphne and Miles, who were dating Peter and Petra, respectively. And then Peter and Petra decided they wanted to be together, and so dumped Daphne and Miles, and ended up, then they sailed off into the sunset. And so Daphne and Miles ended up living together because Daphne had nowhere else to go. And she is a librarian and is working towards this readathon sort of fundraiser thing that she's doing in the library, and ends up inadvertently fake dating Miles for something. And kind of, it's weird because they do fall for each other, but it's like a weird, almost like, I don't know, like grief bonding, but like at the same time, like they just meld very well together. I don't know. This book is like a whole load of chaos, and I absolutely love it. It is very, I'd say it's more similar to, it's not like Happy Place at all. Like Happy Place is a total standout. It's very, very different from the rest of Emily Henry's work, so this is more like Emily Henry's previous works. And I just really enjoyed the time I had. I loved the side characters. I loved the found family and kind of real family that she hooked into this. And I really enjoyed this. I loved the characters. I flew through this in one night. I just could not, I couldn't put it down. There was one point Miles really, really pissed me off, but it's fine because he fixed it. It's fine because he fixed it. He was still really, really dumb, but it's fine because he fixed it. I don't know what else to say about this without just like spoiling it. It's funny because this actually reminded me a lot of The Wake Up Call by Beth O'Leary, like that, this intersperse of these other random like characters as well. Like it was very like a larger cast of characters based rather than just the two main characters. So yeah, if you like that more, you may like this. So I don't know. I'm so glad to get a new Emily Henry. I'm always glad to get a new Emily Henry. And lastly, you'll be glad to be here. My last book of April was, of course, for my own read-along, The Chronicles of Ixia read-along, which I will link down below, and that was Poison Study by Maria V. Snyder. This follows Yelena, who is in the dungeons for murdering the son of one of the generals of the area, and she gets pulled from the dungeons and is offered the choice of the commander's next food taster, because the last food taster, well, he didn't have the stomach for it. And she accepts because living's a lot better than dying. And so Yelena is taken on as the commander's food taster. But the general, whose son was murdered, not very happy about that, and so he sends people to kill her. And you follow Yelena through this book as she kind of is trying to learn how to be the food taster while also trying to dodge people who are trying to kill her. This is quite a brutal book, I have to say. Like, it is quite a brutal book. And you're following Yelena as she's kind of in this weird place of not belonging. Like, the people in the castle don't want to befriend her because she is a murderer, and the general's people are trying to kill her. She has no friends, she has only enemies or people who dislike her. And then you've got Valak, who is the head, like the assassin for the commander, and she does like him, but he's also very unusual because, like, he is basically the one holding her leash, but he's also the one protecting her and keeping her safe and fighting off the people that are trying to kill her. So it's such a weird relationship they have, but we stand Valak. Like, we love Valak in this household. I love this book so much. I really did enjoy this. On reread, I love this even more. I enjoyed it the first time, but I loved it this time. I'm so glad I got a chance to reread this, and I can't wait to read the next one next month for the read along. So you've got plenty of time to join us. The live show's on the 9th. I hope to see you there. You'll be glad to know that is all the books I read in April. I told you, 17 books. 17 books! Over 6,000 pages. That is so many books. I'm so sorry. This is so long. It's the Bergman Brothers books. I tell you, I just went off on a tangent because I love those books so much. I have 2 more to read. I've got one on ebook already, and the other one only got released last month. So I haven't got that one yet, but I get the special editions this month, so look out for an unboxing. And I will, honestly, you do not, they're so beautiful. So beautiful. And I'm so looking forward to the character art and everything. Like, the diversity of the character, I cannot wait. I'm going to get the paperbacks as well, and I'm going to tab and highlight, and I'm going to do a dedicated video on these books because I am so in love with these characters. I swear to you, I will, like, dissect these books. I'm so in love with them. Anyway, stop me from, like, going off on these books again. I promise I'm stopping. I'm finished. I am done. Thank you so much for watching. If you got up to this point in the video and you want to let me know what you were here, leave me a little Swedish flag down there for the Bergman Brothers because they are a Swedish family. You need them in your life. If you've not read that, like, they're available, like, they're specifically not on KU, so they are available for libraries and things because Amazon stopped books going into libraries and stuff, which is a horrible thing for Amazon to do, by the way, just saying. I think you should check them out in your libraries and stuff, just saying. But thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know what you read in the comments below, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!